Hi, this is Dr. Ashwini from the Holistic GP podcast, and welcome to our first Christmas special. So, we all know 2021 has been really tough, and for some of our listeners, and for a lot of us. So, we have put together a special episode on handling holiday anxiety as we head into the festive season. And we have reached out to Deb Hopper. She's an pediatric occupational therapist with 20 over years um, in her clinical practice to empower other occupational therapists and educate families and demystify kids' behavior by providing easy to implement hands-on strategies to transform struggling families and kids' life. Wow, that's fantastic. Something that we all can learn from. So today, let's welcome Deb to our show. And welcome, Deb. Great to have you
Hi,
in
thank you,
today.
Dr. Ashwini.
Okay, so I've done a lot of research and amazing work you have done. So today we're going to really, pick your brains and find out how we all can learn from what you have learned. So let's get started now. For people who don't understand what an occupational therapist does, Deb, can you just give us a quick introduction on that?
Yeah, so an occupational therapist, children or adults to do what they need to do. So whether it's to play, whether it's to learn, whether it's to work, we help to problem solve what is happening physically or with them and and try and figure out really practical strategies that can help them to do what they want and need to do.
Oh, okay. So basically, for any day-to-day living, when people need additional support, we can send them to an occupational therapist.
Yeah,
Am
so
I
occupational
right?
therapists specialize often with children. Or, if an adult has a stroke, yeah, we help them to live the life that they would like to live as much as they can.
Nice, nice. That's really important. Okay, so let's get started on the holiday period. Now, what causes holiday anxiety?
There are so many changes. When we look at the brain, when we have unpredictability, that is what can trigger stress and anxiety. And so, if we think for families and for children, you know, they have been through so much in the last 2 years with COVID, and that is one of my passion areas. But we have come off lots of changes already. We still have schools being closed down for deep cleaning, so we really haven't been in a proper routine for a long time. So your kids are mostly back at school at the moment, weeks, and then they're changing back to home, and then traveling to family or traveling to see friends, and dealing with those holiday changes as well. So that unpredictability can spark anxiety and stress in children.
So, so that explains also, like, my next question was, why is it so stressful? So basically, we're talking about the unpredictability, and sometimes I think the burden we put on ourselves, like it's about doing this, doing that, instead of just enjoying the moment. Do you
Mm.
think that's big? Is it too much of expectations?
Um, Too much of expectation. The expectations are a big part of it. As
Mm,
adults, as parents, we want to have Christmas or the perfect holiday. Then there's the expense expectations, and the pressures. The pressure of shopping or trying to get the right present. Um, the pressure of balancing childcare when you're still working full or part time, the pressures of shared care during the school holidays, for separated families. It's again more changes.
mm. So let's talk about strategies. Can you give us some strategies that parents can actually give their children, or also work on themselves to enjoy this holiday season better and just be more present?
Absolutely. So to feel safer, I mentioned the predictability before. If we can help kids to and the family to map out, what is happening in the holidays. And
Mm-hmm.
one of my biggest strategies, which I've used with my kids when they were younger and now they're both teens, and my son still comes and asks me at the beginning of the holidays, Mum, can we get out the whiteboard? So we get out the whiteboard and we will put like a month or the 6 weeks, and I really recommend mapping out not just the 6 weeks, but you can even start in these last few weeks of school, because even in the last few weeks of school, there are changes with the carols in the park, or school concerts, award ceremonies. Put them on the calendar, and then as the activities for the holidays start to to get sorted and planned, pop them in the calendar as well, because that will help children to know what's coming up. It stops all those questions of, what are we doing this day? What are we doing today? They can just be referred back to the calendar to check. And if they need to go to USH or school care, holiday care, you can pop it on the calendar too. So having that predictability mapped out can really help them to know what's coming up and to relax, and then to be more present, and to
Okay,
have
so that
fun.
that's really nice. But what if they see things in the calendar they're not happy with? That I'm going to this and that, and so how do we get them engaged in what everyone wants to do, not just a particular teenager who wants to watch Netflix for the whole 1 week. So how do we actually form that sort of understanding in the family, and
Hmm.
creating a planner that's going to make everyone happy? Is that possible?
I think we need to remember that, yes, we need to keep kids' preferences in mind, but we are also the parents. And so, if there is a day where there is nothing planned and the teenager wants to do video games all day, you can say, okay, well, you can have, 2 blocks of, whatever length,
Mm.
for video games. But there's a couple of non-negotiables. You need to go for a bike ride. Go for a
Mm.
5K bike ride if they're old enough by themselves, or go for a bike ride with them. Like, increase increase the physical activity that they might have otherwise, because
Mm.
we are all naturally lazy and will take the easy path.
Mm-hmm.
But when we add in that structure, and
Mm-hmm.
in when we put that some physical activity in there, yeah, then that can really, it helps to balance out our mental health, and protect our mental health. So maybe trying to do some different activities, like geocaching is a really fun activity, where there is an app. You can just download the app. It's got little markers on the map, and geocaches are everywhere these days, so you can go and find it. And it's geocaching is where you have like a little container, Tupperware container, hidden somewhere, with some little trinkets or hairbands or things that people have left, and they have to go and find it, leave something for the next person, and take a treasure out.
Mm-hmm.
So there's lots of different ideas. Maybe exploring like a bike track, in town, or in the bush. Maybe try and think outside the square for doing something different, which will be refreshing for our minds, and really rejuvenating, especially after the long periods of lockdowns this year.
Nice. That's nice. Okay, so I want to actually go to, I'm just going to skip a few and go. I think this is important for parents to know.
Yep.
Dealing with fussy eaters during holiday period.
Mm,
So, as a health professional, like like what we do, we see different variety of people. Children may come from different, they have different issues with chemical imbalances, or so how can parents actually have this beautiful meal that they have really spent time preparing,
mm,
and not let a child ruin that, and for them to all enjoy it together? What can they actually
yeah.
do, Deb?
That is so important, because parents have, they have worked hard during the year. They want to celebrate with their family, especially this year. Um, And sometimes we just need to you need to weigh up the pros and the cons, and maybe over the holiday period, fussy eating, it may not be such a high priority, in that week or two. um, Maybe it's the battle that we don't have to fight, because we want the whole family to be able to enjoy it. So maybe it is a time where the children are allowed to eat, a little bit more of, the white foods or the chicken nuggets, which I know is not the healthiest, but it will reduce that whole family anxiety and that family stress. And maybe then, maybe the plan is that, after the holidays, once kids are back at school, that you can again get back into the more healthy eating. And if you're doing, fussy eating with a therapist, really just get back on track and focus on that, because kids need
How
a
does a
break as well.
therapist work on that? How does a therapist work on fussy eater?
Oh, that is a whole nother topic.
Just some nuggets, some gold
Some
nuggets.
gold nuggets. Okay, so the practical strategies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So practical strategies. The first thing I always do, and I have a free tip sheet on my website, which everyone is very able to go and download. Um, Make sure that their feet are on something. So if
Oh,
they are on a
okay.
small table,
Uh-huh.
feet on the floor. If they are on a dining table, put a box or some um, footstools
Stool or
underneath,
okay.
so that they can have their feet on something.
Mm-hmm.
For kids, there's going to be often they have their legs kind of
Hanging
like
and rocking.
straight out like at
Yeah.
45 degrees, because they just their back is at the butt of their back is at the back of the chair, and yeah, they're in the wrong position. So get a pillow or a couple of cushions and put it behind their back. We
Mm-hmm.
really want to have the body and the legs and the feet at 90 degrees. We want them to be really well supported, because often their balance is not fully developed. And if you imagine, trying to sit at a full day conference, or in the office on a bar stool with no footrest, it's very unsteady and it can be
Yeah.
really, really tiring. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what these kids are going through. So that is the first big tip I would suggest trying.
Nice. That's nice. Okay. So that's how that's few tips we can learn from her today. So that's the first one she's shared with us. Now let's move on to another big topic. How do you deal with difficult family members during holiday period?
Oh, I think I have this saying: be curious and not critical. Be curious about the other person. Be curious about, what they are going through as well. They've had a tough year as well. They may be going through health issues that you may not know about. Um, Being curious and creating some space so you can think through this means that you have to be really grounded yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so before you go for these family events, try and eat really healthy the couple of days beforehand. So you have that, that good energy, that good food in your bloodstream, so that you can be more present. Maybe try and, go for a walk before the big Christmas lunch, or Boxing Day lunch. Um, look after your nervous system. If you really find that a facial or a massage, and a massage is my go-to before the holidays. If I have a massage, that is like 2 weeks of holiday in 1 hour. It's such a real burst of calm for me. Um, Work out what really works for you. What is your sensory treat? Maybe it's a hot bath. Maybe it's, jumping in the ocean or jumping in a cold pool. Look after your nervous system. Get yourself to be calm so that you can be able to be curious and have the extra space and the extra patience with dealing with others, because it is tricky.
So yeah, it's basically we can't change them, so we just need to change us, you know, to deal with the
Yeah,
situation. Yeah.
yes, and just remember that, time passes and, if whatever situation you're in, whether it's good or bad, the event will
Hmm.
end. And sometimes if it's really, really hard, just remembering that this will pass, I just have to hang in there can be helpful.
Nice. That's nice. Now, Deb, just for our listeners who may need some extra understanding on this matter, often now this word sensory and sensory processing, all of it is thrown around quite a bit. As an occupational therapist, can you explain to us when someone says, because now parents just openly use it now, they'll come and tell me, my kids are having sensory issues. I'm like, okay, like, what are the issues? It can be just normal childhood things. So, what are real sensory issues when we are talking about sensory processing and how that affects children?
Oh, again, that's a big topic. I'm speaking for 6 hours tomorrow on this.
Okay.
But in a nutshell, sensory processing is how we receive information from the environment, sensory information, how our brain processes it, and then how we have output from that. So there's three main buckets of how that might be different in children and adults. I see adults as well with sensory processing difficulties. So the first is sensory the volume of the senses. So that can relate to children who are very active, or children who are their bodies are underreactive and they just can't get going. So we see that a lot with children. The second bucket is where we look at postural disorders and planning, ideation, and like dyspraxia concerns. So that's more to do with the motor coordination and reactions.
Hmm.
And then the third bucket is discrimination. So that's when we may not interpret sensory information correctly. So, for example, a child who is trying to puzzle piece into a puzzle in the wrong way, and they're not getting sensory information through their touch system but also through their muscles, they may keep pushing and pushing because they don't get that feedback that they just need to turn it a little bit and then it will slot in. So they are the three main areas, and there's often a mixture of that, and that occupational therapists really try and figure out the puzzle pieces to see, what is how is a sensory piece impacting on behaviour or coordination, or yeah, the discrimination of the different senses to do functional things like picking a drink bottle up, being able to move it to their mouth successfully rather than spilling the water.
Hmm. Interesting. Oh, thank you for that. That was, yeah, I think a good summary of what it is. Now, from what I've read about you, one of the things is you speak a lot about parenting and bringing the joy of parenting back.
Yes.
Again, is there any nuggets you can give us in enjoying the process of being a parent, letting go of
Mm,
your beliefs and just letting that soul in front of you flourish?
yeah. It's the ideal that we all strive for. But it's very different in the different stages of development.
Hmm.
Babies need us 24/7. Toddlers are there all day long,
Hmm.
wanting us to be playmates. And yeah, teens, it's different. It's less physical, but it's more mental in that parenting. Again, I think having the headspace, looking after yourself and your mental health and being grounded is really, really important. So that you have that capacity, that emotional and mental capacity to be available, to have that time, and to be really present, and not just be in the same room, but to be, in the same room and engaged. It's getting trickier and trickier with screens, both for kids of all ages, unfortunately, and for adults. I think that, yeah, that's a tricky thing, because when we were on screens, like years ago, there was an experiment with the still face, this called the still face experiment, where a mother made herself have a blank face with her baby, and it was looking at the reactions of stress and withdrawal of the baby, and that is what we do when parents are on screens too much. Like, we are looking at the screen with a still face, and our kids, whether they're like younger or teens, they're like, "Mom, like, come and talk to me." So we need to be mindful of that. But yes, the joy of parenting, it's really being present, is so important, because that's what our kids need. They don't need more stuff. They need more time and engaged time.
So I think that's also important for all of us to realize during this holiday season. It's not just giving things, it's, I think, giving our time and being more present.
Yeah, and maybe giving presents of, let's go to, I don't know, go to
Experiences, right? Like,
experiences, go to
yeah,
the city
yeah.
and just walk around and get an ice cream.
Hmm. Not just things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really nice, Deb. I believe in that. Now we'll go to a bit more of a sensitive topic during this, but I think still we need to talk to about it. In
Mm.
Australia, we've been really lucky. I mean, in Perth, we have been very lucky in WA, but other places, yeah, there still has been a lot of COVID-related, you know, bad outcomes. People have lost family members and things like that.
Yeah.
What can you give us some tips? So, how do those families who might be in the stage of grieving, or they may not be really ready to embrace the holiday like everyone else, how can they embrace these holidays when they have
Mm.
lost a loved one and when the chair in that lunch table is empty?
Yeah, that's really, really hard. And whether they have, yeah, lost someone, or whether it's because the person can't travel because that state is still closed.
Exactly,
That's
exactly.
really, really tricky. Look, I think, like, there's two situations there. So if people can't reunite because of, physical um, state closures, for example, doing sending a special present, making sure you have those Zoom calls, maybe even during the dinner, um, maybe even thinking ahead of, like, well, we can't get together this Christmas, but how about, we plan, when we can, let's get together for a weekend sometime. And you might not be able to put that on the calendar because you may not know the circumstances, but just having the idea that, we're going to do something extra special when we can get together.
Hmm.
um, and if you have lost someone to COVID, um, yeah, it's really important to acknowledge it and to talk about it. um, Maybe even, create, or buy a special, Christmas tree bauble, or a star, or some symbol, whether it's for the home or the tree, or I know everyone has, different
Hmm.
traditions and routines during Christmas. But maybe, yeah, get something special to remember them by, for this Christmas. And maybe go for a special, memory walk. And walking is really important when you're remembering people, because that physical movement is going to be, grounding and calming for you as well. So physically, it will help to get you through. Um, but yeah, not just sweeping it under the carpet, and not acknowledging it. Be communicative, and I guess be mindful of people's needs. Some people might want to talk about it, whereas some people might find that too hard still.
Hmm. So
Yeah,
there's no right or wrong, basically. Every family, deals it with their own way.
absolutely. Yeah.
That's Yeah, that's nice, Deb. Hopefully, those who might want needed to listen this got something out of that. Now,
Mm,
as an occupational therapist, Deb,
mm.
during the holiday season, what sort of problems do you see in your clinic?
I see kids who are out of routine often, who are missing school. Um, that out of routine is it's really impacted. It really impacts kids. Um, Often my kids have a break for therapy during the holidays. Some of them sometimes they come in for some intense sessions. Um, I think the biggest struggle kids have is yeah, when they're traveling and they're out of routine and they're not sure what's coming up.
Mm-hmm.
I have parents come back and they say, we forgot to do the whiteboard and it went pear shaped. Or we used the whiteboard and it worked well. That is just one thing that I come back to parents over the holidays um, to increase that predictability.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's really those transitions that they struggle with.
And if the parents are struggling with that, with the kid during that period, and you guys, we are closed, and
Yeah.
what are things that they can actually do to improve the situation?
Mm, mm. Maybe spending some extra time with their children.
Mm-hmm.
Just hang out, whether that's just hanging, sitting on the couch watching their favourite movie, or reading a book with them, or for older kids, just yeah, being on the couch. You've got a book maybe, and they're on a screen. Um, just knowing for them kids to know that you are there and you are close is really reassuring for them. Um, Sorry, I've lost it. um, I've lost my train of thought. Sorry, Dave. So, what was? Can you rephrase the question again?
No, I was just saying, so, during this period, a lot of the therapies are closed and there's extended holiday for all of us, which we need to come back refreshed and,
Yeah.
give better care. But at that point, when parents are stuck with the children's behavior or they don't know what to do, they don't know, who to reach out to, what are the things that they
Mm,
can do to actually um, diffuse the situation or help the child, um, in whatever, like I said, because they don't know what's happening. If they, we don't tell them about holiday plans, it
mm,
makes them very upset and anxious. But if the child has already become upset and anxious, what are the things that
mm.
the parents can help with?
Yeah, yeah. So maybe you could, for the younger kids, print some pictures off clip art for different fun activities that that they like Lego or, the swing outside or the local park. Even go and take some photos of their favourite spots. Maybe a picture of an ice cream for, an ice cream treat. Having a list of activities or cutting them out and putting them into a fun jar can be one idea that when they're sick of being inside or they're going, I'm bored, you can go to the fun jar and say, okay, well, here's some ideas, which one would you like to do? um,
Mm,
if you have a preference for what you'd like to do, you might choose all the outdoor activities and put them in the fun jar so they can choose out of, 3 choices or 4 choices. Um, get children to come up with ideas. One idea I did with my kids when they were younger was to have a, tell mum where to go morning, where we would hop in the car and they had to give directions for turn left, turn right, and they decided between them where to go. Um, and of course, have limits, so like a budget limit or whatever. Um, but but that works really well. And I've got a family actually with some teens, and they are saving up tokens. And when they get a certain number of tokens, they're going to have like a certain budget, and then yeah, they can they can do a special event for the family. So get your child involved and get them to have some buy-in into what that list will include, and that will really help to get them to be, okay with the different activities that are chosen.
Thank you, Deb. I think that was really nice. And I think the two main thing I got today was important to plan and get your child involved in what's happening
Mm,
during the holidays, and for parents and other family members to be present in the situation. I think
yes,
that's really important. So, before we
absolutely.
let you go, now, can you give us three pieces of advice you would like to tell our listeners how they can all make Christmas 2021 an enjoyable experience?
Yeah, so I'm going to go back to my number one thing of mapping out the activities on a calendar or whiteboard. Grab some paper if you're away and you don't have the tools and like that you have at home all set up. Grab a piece of paper off the printer, whoever's place you're at, and just map out the 5 days you're there and just put a couple of things in, just so that the children have some idea of what's coming up. Um, Number two is, even verbally, over communicate. Tell kids, just, when you're at brekkie, oh, just remember today we're going to go to the beach in the morning, then we're going to have fish and chips for dinner. Keep it really, simple. And that can just be a reminder to them to know, what's coming up. And then number three is just to remember that, yes, they are going through lots of transitions and changes. So, and when we are doing that, decrease the challenge. Kids need to have fun downtime as well. So maybe for them it's going to local putt putt and playing a game with them in the morning. Maybe it's letting them have some sometimes food or special treats, pizza or whatever, for dinner. Every so often. Yeah, decrease the challenge. Maybe give them if they've got regular chores around the house, maybe just you do them every so often during the holiday season, just so they get some time off as well.
Nice, nice. So, you had really summarized that pretty good. Now, before we let you go, the last question would be, have you read or listened to anything that's really inspired you that you can share with our listeners today?
Oh, I am an avid reader. I have
Mm-hmm.
3 books going at once. One thing I've been listening to recently, it's the book called The Compound Effect, about making small changes um, regularly, which make big changes in the end. And we can think about that, in terms of, health or weight loss. But maybe I can challenge the listeners to think about that as in, spending an extra, 5 minutes with your child every day, or in the holidays, pulling out those pack of cards or Monopoly, and doing that one more time than you would have last holidays. Um,
Mm-hmm.
just yeah, try and increase that connection time with your child a little bit more, and maybe also add in a little bit of extra self-care between now and Christmas so that you are feeling grounded and ready for those more stressful holidays.
Thank you. So, the compound effect for those who want to get the book.
The compound effect, yeah.
Yes. Okay, Deb. So thanks for coming. We've really enjoyed talking to you today. So before we end the show, where can our listeners find you?
Sure. So I am at Life Skills for Kids, Life Skills numeral 4 kids.com.au, and Life Skills for Kids on Facebook. And I also have the Life Skills for Kids podcast on Spotify and all those good um, programs.
Thank you. So we have the end of our show today. We hope everyone has really benefited from listening to Deb. Until